Welcome to the MicroQuad Dual Timer Overview from HydroFreshGreens.com. Here we show the default display, which yours should be pretty similar. I'm just going to go over a few things on the display. First of all, at the top, you'll see the time, and then in the lower left is the controls for timer number 1, and the lower right is the controls for timer number 2. And then finally, at the bottom center is a lock or unlock icon, actually a lock icon. Timer 1 is for the light, and timer 2 is for the pump. Now, when you're programming the timer, if you don't touch it for a few minutes, it will automatically lock. So when you're programming it, you got to be programming it. If you leave it alone, it will lock back up. To unlock it, you press the timer and clock button at the same time, and then that will remove this lock feature, which will enable you to program the timer. So this display now shows that lock icon removed, so you are now in programming mode. If that is still there, press the timer and clock button together at the same time, and that should be removed. Now, the other thing is the mode. You're in programming mode now, but you haven't selected a program, but you do have the option to see if timer 1 and timer 2 can both be controlled by the program, and they need to be in order for this to work. So in this example, we have auto for timer number 1 and auto for timer number 2, which is what should be displayed. If your display does not have that, then press the mode 1 or the mode 2 button, and that will toggle between auto and manual, and you want it to be auto because that's what controls the lights or pumps. So if both of yours say auto in timer 1 and timer 2, then you're ready to proceed into the programming steps. Here we press the program button, and now we are in program number 1, and it's showing the on for program number 1. So what time do you want the first program to start? And which timer do you want it to control? There are 8 programs, so this number will go from 1 to 8, and then it'll be 1 on, 1 off, and then 2 on, 2 off, etc. So in this example, it's program 1, the on or start time, and which timer is it controlling? In this example, it's timer 1, which is correct. It's the light timer. So you select a time. I have entered a time in for 6 p.m. and you could change that time if you like by pressing the time button. And again, if timer 1 isn't selected, you press your timer button and it'll toggle between timer 1, timer 2, and both timers. And you want it for program 1 to be on timer 1. Once you have the time correct and the timer selected, then you can go ahead and press program again. Here, after you press program again, it's switched to timer 1 off. Program 1 off, which is controlling timer 1, and the time is set for 12 p.m. and so that's when it will turn off. Keep in mind, this is controlling the lights. Timer 1 controls the lights, and so we want that to be on for about 12 to 18 hours, and it's currently set for 18 hours. If you wanted to change the time, just press the time button. And again, make sure it's controlling timer number 1. So let's press the program button again. And now we are on program number 2. And it's timer 2 is selected. So now we're going to control the pump on timer number 2. And you select the on time. The thing to keep in mind for timer number 2, which controls the pump, you want that only on for 1 minute. So whatever your start time is, make sure your stop time is 1 minute later. So in this example, the start time is 12 o'clock. If you needed to change that, you press the time button, and then um, you press the program button again to move on to the off time for number 2. And now the off time for 2 is selected, and it's 12:01. Since it started at 12, then it's going to stop at 12:01. So that's 1 minute. Make sure AM PM is the same, and so that you only want it for 1 minute. So now we can move on to program number 3. Program number 3, actually program 3, 4, and 5 are identical to program number 2, except they're 6 hours later. So instead of walking through the steps, we're just going to show you a table that has all the differences. So starting at the top, program 1 was for timer 1, which is the light, and it's on for 18 hours. Program 2 started at 12 a.m., went off at 12:01 p.m., so it only lasted 1 minute, and it was for timer number 2. Program number 3 is the one we're on, and it's also set for timer number 2, the pump, but it's 6 hours later, and then you want it to go off 1 minute later, so it's 6 a.m., off at 6:01 a.m. And then the next one at 12 p.m. and off at 12:01 p.m., and then finally 6 p.m. and off at 6:01 p.m. So those are the 5 timers, 4 for the pump, 1 for the light, and you should walk through your timer and make sure it matches this. Obviously the start and stop times can be the same, but you want program number 1 to be approximately 18 hours, and program number 2, 3, 4, and 5 all to be on timer number 2, just for 1 minute increments. Okay, if you didn't want it every 6 hours, you wanted it every 8 hours a day, then you would only need 3 programs and make them 8 hours different time difference from each one of them. And that's pretty much it. Now we're going to look at a couple of program options. So again, to get into program mode, you got to press the timer and clock at the same time so that locked icon can be removed. Pressing the mode button when you're in a program, like in this, it's currently showing the start time for number 1, for program number 1. If you press the mode button, either mode 1 or mode 2, then what that will do is that'll clear the time. So let's say you got into program number 6 and you didn't want to set a start time for that. You can just press the mode button and that'll clear the display, and then you press the program button again, and then that will remove that program that you accidentally put in there. Pressing the timer button will toggle between timer 1, timer 2, and both timers. So in this example, it's timer 1 is being selected, but you press the timer button and it'll toggle. Instead of timer 1 being selected, timer 2 over here will be selected. And then finally both of them, but you don't want both of them. You want the one you want to control, either timer 1 or timer number 2. And that's pretty much it. So thank you very much. And that concludes our little session on the timer. Thank you.